Do you love novels, but don't have time to read thousands of chapters? Imagine listening to your favorite stories anytime, anywhere, while driving, working, or relaxing. Here, you'll find premium audiobooks from Pocket FM, Audible, Webnovel, Wuxia, and more, all in one place. Every novel is a one-time payment, no subscriptions, no monthly fees, lifetime access. The full novel list and prices are in the description below. Once you choose a novel, just DM me on Telegram, WhatsApp, or Discord. After payment via PayPal, Ko-fi, or Patreon, you get permanent access to the audiobook on Telegram. And if the novel is ongoing, all future updates are included. Check the description, pick your story, and start listening today. Before we start the video, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Enjoy, and let's go.
101, Chapter 92, Mission for Kazuki and Sakura. 1 week later. That's all. Concentration, focus, and stay calm. Kazuki repeated the words that Ishida had said moments ago, standing in front of him with a bewildered expression. Yes, is that a problem? Ishida asked. Well, I mean, you're so strong and do so many things effortlessly. There has to be some secret technique or specific training regimen you follow, right? Sakura questioned, clearly expecting more detailed instruction. Well, I guess I never really thought about it like that, Ishida replied, pausing for a few seconds to consider their question. I never really had an instructor who taught me formal fighting techniques or gave me step-by-step guidance. Most of what I do is instinctive while fighting demons, like, a lot of it. Ishida scratched the back of his head, clearly struggling to articulate his methods. I suppose that's why I'm not great at explaining it. When you learn everything through trial and error, through life or death situations, you don't really break it down into teachable steps. You just do what feels right in the moment. So you're saying we should just wing it? Kazuki asked, looking skeptical. Not exactly, Ishida said, shaking his head. What I'm saying is that those three things, concentration, focus, and staying calm, are the foundation everything else builds on. Both Kazuki and Sakura looked a bit disappointed at his explanation. So we can never become as cool as you, Kazuki said with a dejected tone. And I can't become as strong as him. Sakura muttered under her breath. Ishida was bewildered for a second by their disappointed reactions, then a slight smile crossed his face. Well, I have an idea, though it would be a bit difficult. Are you two ready or not? But instead of answering his question, both stared at him with surprised expressions. He smiled. Sakura exclaimed. He can really smile, huh? Kazuki added in amazement. I thought he couldn't smile, Sakura finished with exaggerated shock. What are you guys muttering about? Ishida asked, his smile fading back into his usual neutral expression as they continued whispering among themselves. Are you ready or not? They quickly straightened up, snapping to attention. Yes. They both replied in unison. Ishida let out a small sigh, then prepared himself. All right then, get ready. Where are we going? Kazuki asked, walking behind Ishida as Sakura walked beside him. Isn't it obvious, for a mission? Ishida replied, with his always straightforward tone. But, you said we were going for training. Kazuki responded. You are really dumb, aren't you? Sakura spoke up, glancing at Kazuki with exasperation. This mission is our training, idiot. Exactly, Ishida confirmed without turning back. The missions you two have been taking are too easy for your current skill level. You're not being pushed to your limits, so you're not growing. Kazuki's eyes widened as realization dawned on him. Wait, so you're saying this mission is going to be harder than what we usually handle? Yes, Ishida replied matter-of-factly. According to the information I received, there have been multiple disappearances of young women near a mountain village temple over the past few months. The pattern suggests we're dealing with something stronger than the average demons you've been fighting. Sakura felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. How much harder are we talking about? Difficult enough to push your limits, Ishida said, finally glancing back at them. But don't worry, I'll be there. Though I won't be holding your hands through it. Great, Kazuki muttered, though there was determination in his voice. No pressure at all. The whole point is pressure, Ishida explained. Real growth only happens when you're forced beyond your comfort zone. The missions you've been taking, they're keeping you stagnant. 102, Chapter 93, The Mountain Temple. It was almost evening when the three finally reached the village. As they started walking through the streets, Ishida noticed what the information had already suggested. There were very few people out in the streets or browsing the market. Barely 1 or 2 shops were open, even though it was still far from nighttime and not even that dark yet. So, do you have any information about where the demon might be and where we need to go? Or do we just walk around until a demon shows up? Kazuki spoke up with a nonchalant tone. No. According to the information from the core, the young girls were taken on that mountain, Ishida said, looking up. Both Kazuki and Sakura followed his gaze and looked in the same direction. There was a mountain up ahead, visible only because darkness hadn't fallen yet. The Demon Slayer Corps sent out about 22 slayers over the last 2 weeks, at different times. Only 2 were able to return and bring information back with them. Kazuki's expression shifted drastically. Huh, that means 20 couldn't return. Are you saying you came here knowing we're facing a demon this powerful? Ishida completely ignored his comment and continued explaining. It said that there's a temple at the top of this mountain where the young girls went and disappeared. It's possibly a lower moon demon, probably lower moon 6, according to the 2 survivors. He completely ignored me, Kazuki muttered under his breath. A lower moon? Sakura asked, her voice carrying a hint of nervousness. You want us to face a lower moon? Yes, Ishida replied matter-of-factly. Though I'll be there, the fight will be for both of you only. I'll watch over you. Watch over us. That's reassuring, Kazuki said sarcastically. You wanted to get stronger, didn't you? Ishida said, glancing at him. This is how you do it. Before either of them could respond, a young boy, perhaps around 10 years old, cautiously approached them. His eyes were fixed on the swords they carried at their sides. Are you also with those people? The boy asked timidly. Ishida turned his attention to the boy. What do you mean by, those people? There were people like you carrying swords a few days ago as well, the boy explained, his voice gaining a bit more confidence. One of them even saved my sister. Ishida crouched down slightly to be at eye level with the boy. Do you know anything about the demon or what's been happening here? The boy nodded slowly. My family, it's just me, my elder sister, and my mother. My mother is really sick. My work and my sister's work together, we couldn't afford her treatment. We were going through a really bad time. He paused, fidgeting with his hands. One day, one of her friends told her about someone at the mountain temple who helps people like her with their problems. They said this person could solve everything. So she went with her friend and started going regularly. But one day, she didn't come back, the boy continued, his voice trembling slightly. I got worried, so I went to the mountain to check on her. But before I could even get close to the top, I saw my sister running down. She was being chased by someone. I couldn't see clearly what it was. His eyes widened as he recalled the memory. Then one of those people like you guys suddenly appeared and stood between whatever was chasing my sister and us. He told me to take her back, and I did. She was injured badly. She's still recovering from it now. The boy's expression grew somber. But I never saw that guy who came to help us after that day. Ishida nodded slowly, processing the information. Everything the boy described matched perfectly with what he'd been told and the reports he'd received. He placed a hand gently on the boy's shoulder. Thank you for telling us this. You were very brave, Ishida said. The boy nodded and quickly walked away, disappearing into one of the nearby houses. Sakura looked at Ishida with concern. So that person who saved his sister. Probably one of the 20 who didn't make it back, Ishida finished her thought, his expression hardening. This demon is luring people in with promises of help and salvation. That's sick, Kazuki muttered, his earlier nonchalance completely gone. That's what demons do, Ishida replied coldly. They prey on the desperate and vulnerable. Which is exactly why we're here to stop it. So, what do we do now? Sakura asked. According to the information, the demon should be in the temple. So, should we head there? Ishida paused, thinking to himself, a lower moon? A single lower moon wiped out 20 demon slayer squads. And they weren't the lowest ranked either, at minimum Kanoto, with a few Tsuchinoto at the end, who barely managed to survive. The quality really seems to be slipping, though I can't say for sure if it was ever much better before. We'll head for the mountain, Ishida finally replied. Still, I can't shake this feeling that something's wrong. It's not as simple as we're assuming. 103, Chapter 94, The Fight to Learn, but can they? Sometimes later. As they approached the mountain and in cloak, it was already midnight, too dark to maintain visibility, but all three were adapted to such situations. Do you sense any demons, Ishida? My basic senses haven't picked up anything yet, Kazuki spoke as the trio walked up the mountain, forest surrounding them on all sides. The sky had turned dark, nighttime had finally arrived, amplified by the dense forest canopy above. Even through the trees and thick vegetation, there was a well-maintained path that the three were currently walking on. It was obviously in perfect shape and condition due to the fact that people still walked through here, maybe demons too. But aside from the path they were on, the entire forest was densely filled with large trees, creating an oppressive darkness within. The demon presence is almost everywhere in the forest, Ishida replied, his eyes scanning their surroundings carefully. But there's something closer now, on this path. Wait, you mean right here? Sakura asked, her hand instinctively moving toward her sword. How close are we talking? Kazuki added, now alert. As they continued moving forward, both Sakura and Kazuki's expressions changed as they too began sensing the demonic presence growing stronger. Here it comes, Ishida said calmly. The moment those words left his mouth, a blur of movement shot toward them from the darkness ahead. Ishida sidestepped effortlessly, causing Kazuki to hastily raise his sword to block the sudden attack. Hey, you dodged. We could have died. Kazuki shouted, struggling against the force. You didn't die, did you? Ishida replied matter-of-factly. The demon was pushed back several meters by Kazuki's block, finally revealing itself in the dim moonlight filtering through the trees. It was a male demon with a distinctive appearance, pale skin, dark markings across his face, and an anxious, almost fearful expression despite being the attacker. His eyes darted between the three of them nervously. More demon slayers. The demon muttered, his voice wavering with uncertainty. Why do they keep sending you here? Can't you just leave us alone? Lower Moon 6, Kamino. Level, 45. The system notification appeared before Ishida's eyes. He analyzed the information quickly. Level 45. That should be manageable for them. He glanced back at Sakura and Kazuki. Lower Moon 6 is a good starting point for their training. As Ishida was thinking, the demon suddenly lunged at him, apparently deciding he was the biggest threat. Ishida dodged smoothly, moving out of the way without even drawing his sword, creating distance between himself and the demon. Those two are your opponents, Ishida said, pointing at Sakura and Kazuki. Then he turned to his apprentices. And that's your training. What? Both Sakura and Kazuki shouted simultaneously. You want us to fight a lower moon? Sakura exclaimed. Right now, without any preparation. Kazuki added, his voice cracking slightly. You've had a week of preparation, Ishida replied calmly, crossing his arms. Now show me what you can do. The demon's face contorted with rage, his anxious demeanor shifting into genuine fury. Training. You dare use me as training material. His voice cracked with indignation as he launched himself at Ishida once more, claws extended. Water breathing, second form, water wheel. Sakura's blade carved through the air in a rotating slash, intercepting the demon mid-leap. Her attack forced him to twist away from Ishida, landing several meters to the side. I guess we don't have any choice but to fight now, Sakura said, her stance settling into a combat-ready position. Yeah, well, better than standing around watching Ishida dodge all day, Kazuki replied, moving to flank the demon from the opposite side. At least this way we're doing something. The demon, Kamino, recovered quickly, his eyes darting between the two young slayers with that characteristic nervous energy. You're just children. Why did they send children? Despite his words, his body language was tense, coiled like a spring. Fine then. I'll make this quick. He surged forward with surprising speed, targeting Sakura first. His claws slashed in rapid succession, each strike carrying enough force to gouge deep trenches in the earth where she'd been standing moments before. Fast, Ishida observed from his position, arms still crossed. But his movements are erratic. Fear-based. He's strong, but lacks the refined killing intent of the higher-ranked demons. Flame breathing, first form, unknowing fire. Kazuki's blade swept in from the demon's blind spot, forcing him to abort his assault on Sakura. The visualized flames traced brilliant arcs through the darkened forest as his sword met the demon's hastily raised arm. Metal met demonic flesh with a resounding clang, but instead of severing the limb, Kazuki's blade only managed to create a shallow cut. The demon's durability was on a completely different level than what either of them had faced before. What? Kazuki's eyes widened as he was forced back by the demon's counterattack, barely managing to bring his sword up to block a vicious swipe that sent him skidding backward. His skin is too tough. Sakura called out, circling to maintain pressure. We need to hit harder. You think I don't know that? Kazuki shot back, finding his footing. Kamino's nervous laughter echoed through the trees. You see, this is why they keep dying. Lower moon demons aren't like the fodder you've been killing. We're on a completely different, water-breathing, third form, flowing dance. Sakura cut off his monologue with a flowing series of slashes, her blade weaving through multiple angles. The technique's unpredictable nature forced the demon to actually focus on defense, his arms coming up to block and deflect. Annoying little. He swiped at her with his other hand, but she had already flowed past, her movement taking her behind him. Flame breathing, second form, rising scorching sun. Kazuki's upward slash caught the demon from below, finally drawing a deeper wound across his torso. Dark blood splattered across the forest floor. Yes! Kazuki exclaimed, but his celebration was premature. The wound was already beginning to close, the demon's regeneration visibly knitting flesh back together. Kamino's expression twisted into something between fear and desperation. You think that's enough? You think a scratch like that means anything? They're landing hits, Yoshida noted, watching the exchange carefully, but they're not putting enough power behind their strikes. Against a lower moon's regeneration, they need to either sever completely or overwhelm the healing with continuous damage. The demon's next attack was more coordinated, more vicious. He lunged at Sakura with both hands, forcing her into a defensive position. You're out of your depth, girl. Water breathing, fourth form, striking tide. Sakura's counter came immediately, her blade becoming a blur of simultaneous strikes from multiple angles. Several connected, opening wounds across the demon's arms and chest, but none deep enough to be critical. As she finished the form, slightly out of position, the demon's hand shot forward. His claws raked across her shoulder, tearing through fabric and flesh. Sakura gasped, stumbling back as blood began to seep from the wound. Sakura! Kazuki rushed in, his blade aimed at the demon's neck, but Kamino was already moving. The demon spun, his legs sweeping out to catch Kazuki mid-charge. The impact sent him tumbling across the forest floor. This is the difference. The demon shouted, his voice rising with hysterical energy. This is why 20 of you died. You're not ready. You'll never be ready. Kazuki pushed himself up, wincing. Damn it, he's right. We can't even land a solid hit. Sakura pressed her hand against her bleeding shoulder, her breathing heavy. We're too slow. Every time we create an opening, he recovers before we can capitalize on it. They're right to recognize their limitations, Yoshida thought, his expression unchanged. But recognition isn't the same as adaptation. Let's see if they can figure it out. The demon charged again, emboldened by drawing first blood. His attacks were becoming more aggressive, more confident. Sakura and Kazuki moved to meet him, but their coordination was starting to break down under the pressure. Each exchange left them slightly more battered, slightly more exhausted. Why isn't Ishida helping? Kazuki shouted, barely deflecting another strike. Because this is training, remember. Sakura replied through gritted teeth, her own blade coming up to parry. We have to figure this out ourselves. Well, I'm open to suggestions. Kazuki ducked under a wild swing, countering with his own strike that the demon simply absorbed. Because what we're doing now clearly isn't working. 104, Chapter 95, Sakura and Kazuki's Accomplishment. The demon pressed his advantage, his attacks becoming more relentless. Sakura barely managed to deflect a strike aimed at her throat, while Kazuki took a glancing blow to his ribs that made him grunt in pain. We need to work together. Sakura called out, repositioning herself. Same pattern as before, but faster. Got it. Kazuki responded, shaking off the pain. They moved in unison this time, their coordination sharpened by desperation. Sakura initiated with water breathing, second form, water wheel, her rotating slash forcing the demon to raise his guard. Before he could counter, Kazuki was already there. Flame breathing, first form, unknowing fire. His blade came in from the side, the demon barely twisting away in time. Water breathing, third form, flowing dance. Sakura's follow-up didn't give him any breathing room, her fluid strikes chaining seamlessly from Kazuki's attack. Flame breathing, second form, rising scorching sun. Kazuki's upward slash caught the demon's hastily raised arm, this time cutting deeper. Water breathing, fourth form, striking tide. Sakura's barrage of strikes landed across the demon's torso, finally drawing multiple significant wounds. Kamino staggered back, dark blood streaming from several gashes. But even as they watched, the wounds began knitting themselves closed, slower than before but still regenerating. Damn it! Kazuki panted, sweat dripping down his face. It's still not enough. Both of them were breathing heavily now, their stamina clearly depleting while the demon, despite his injuries, seemed far from finished. They landed hard on the ground, weapons still raised but bodies clearly struggling. Sakura glanced at Kazuki, her eyes determined despite her exhaustion. Should we do that combo? Kazuki's eyes widened. Now, we haven't even tried that on a demon yet. Well, if we don't try, we won't know if it works, Sakura responded, readjusting her grip on her sword. I guess that's also true, Kazuki said, nodding slowly. Alright, let's do it. They separated, circling the demon from opposite sides. The demon's eyes darted between them nervously, sensing something different in their approach. Water breathing, first form, water surface slash. Sakura struck first, her blade creating a powerful horizontal slash that forced the demon to block. But this was just the opening. Flame breathing, first form, unknowing fire. Kazuki came in immediately after, his strike targeting the demon's exposed flank. Water breathing, third form, flowing dance. Sakura's blade wove through the air in unpredictable patterns, each strike flowing into the next without pause. Flame breathing, second form, rising scorching sun. Kazuki's upward slash coordinated perfectly with Sakura's flowing attacks, creating a pincer effect. Water breathing, fourth form, striking tide. Sakura increased the pressure, her multiple simultaneous strikes overwhelming the demon's defense. Flame breathing, third form, blazing universe. Kazuki's technique created a spiraling slash that seemed to ignite the very air around it, his blade carving a devastating arc through the demon's torso. Water breathing, sixth form, whirlpool. Sakura's final technique created a twisting vortex of slashes, her blade spinning and striking from every conceivable angle in a maelstrom of water-like movements. The combined assault was devastating. Deep gashes opened across the demon's body, dark blood spraying in multiple directions. Kamino screamed, staggering backward with wounds that, for the first time, seemed to overwhelm his regeneration. There, Ishida observed from his position. They're finally putting real pressure on him. Both Sakura and Kazuki landed, breathing heavily but with renewed hope in their eyes. The demon was wounded, seriously wounded, but as they watched, his body began the slow process of regeneration once more. Why won't you just die? Kamino's voice cracked with fury and fear. He launched himself at them with wild, desperate strikes, all semblance of strategy abandoned. His attacks were powerful but erratic, driven by panic rather than skill. Sakura rolled under a wild slash, barely avoiding decapitation. Kazuki blocked another strike but was sent sliding backward from the sheer force. One of the demon's claws caught Sakura's leg, leaving a bloody gash. Another caught Kazuki across the chest, tearing through his uniform. He's losing it. Kazuki shouted, deflecting another wild strike. The demon's assault finally paused, his chest heaving with exertion despite not needing to breathe. His wounds were still closing, but slower now, much slower. Your technique is sloppy, Ishida's voice cut through the chaos, calm and measured. Both Sakura and Kazuki glanced at him briefly. You're putting power into your strikes, but you're not focusing it at the point of impact. Concentrate your breathing at the moment your blade makes contact. That's when it matters most. Sakura wiped blood from her mouth, studying the demon carefully. Her eyes narrowed as something clicked. Hey, if you were winning, why do you still look so anxious? Kazuki caught on immediately. Yeah, I noticed that too. You're panicking. Even now, you're scared. Kamino's expression twisted, his fear-tinged anger reaching a boiling point. Shut up. Shut up. I'll kill you both. He launched forward with even more vicious abandon, his strikes wild and uncontrolled. But desperation works both ways. Now. Sakura and Kazuki moved as one, both pushing past their exhaustion for one final coordinated strike. Water breathing, first form, water surface slash. Sakura's blade came from the left, her breathing perfectly controlled, all her remaining strength focused into a single horizontal slash. Flame breathing, first form, unknowing fire. Kazuki's blade came from the right, his technique executed with absolute precision, flames seeming to dance along the steel. Their swords met the demon's neck from opposite sides simultaneously, the combined force and perfect timing finally achieving what individual strikes couldn't. The demon's eyes widened in shock and fear as both blades cut through flesh, muscle, and bone. Kamino's head separated from his body, tumbling through the air before hitting the ground with a dull thud. His body remained standing for a moment, as if refusing to accept its fate, before crumbling into ash. Both Sakura and Kazuki collapsed to their knees, exhausted and bleeding but alive. Their chests heaved as they tried to catch their breath, weapons still clutched in trembling hands. We did it," Sakura managed between gasps. "Barely," Kazuki added, wincing as he touched his wounded chest. I think I'm going to pass out now." Ishida finally moved from his position, walking over to where his two apprentices sat exhausted on the forest floor. "You both did well. You adapted, you coordinated, and most importantly, you didn't give up even when outmatched." He crouched down beside them, his expression softening slightly. But this was only lower moon 6. There are 5 more above him, and then the upper moons after that. This is the level you'll need to reach and surpass if you want to survive. "Great," Kazuki muttered, his head hanging low. "No pressure. Take this." Ishida brought out 2 healing potions out of his inventory and lent one to each of them. The potions would at least revive her some stamina and heal some wounds, but the bleeding needed to be stopped with some bandages and needed immediate treatment. Sakura and Kazuki accepted the healing potions gratefully, their hands shaking as they uncorked the vials. The liquid glowed faintly as they drank, and almost immediately, some of their exhaustion began to lift. Ishida pulled medical supplies from his pack and began wrapping their wounds with practiced efficiency. He started with Sakura's leg, binding the gash tightly with clean bandages. "You coordinated well by the end," he said, moving to Kazuki's chest wounds. "That final strike showed proper teamwork." "Thanks," Kazuki managed, wincing as the bandages tightened. "That advice about focusing our breathing at the point of impact, it really helped." "Your stamina management still needs work," Ishida continued, finishing the wrapping. "And your defensive positioning leaves openings. But you survived an encounter with a lower moon. That's more than most can say." Sakura nodded, exhaustion clear in her eyes. "It was so much stronger than the regular demons we've faced on other missions." "Lower Moon 6 is the weakest of the 12, Kazuki," Ishida stated flatly. "The ones above him are." He stopped mid-sentence. His entire body went rigid, hand moving instinctively to his sword. The shift was so sudden, so complete, that both Sakura and Kazuki felt their blood run cold. Then they felt it too. A presence, overwhelming, suffocating, ancient. The temperature seemed to drop, and the very air grew heavy with malevolence. This wasn't like the demon they'd just fought. This was something far, far worse. "Get behind me. Now." Ishida's voice was steel. "Don't speak. Don't move." They scrambled to obey, both feeling their legs threaten to give out from more than just exhaustion. Whatever was approaching made every instinct scream at them to run. He appeared between the trees like a phantom. Tall and unnaturally graceful, he wore a blood-red turtleneck beneath tan hakama pants and a black kimono adorned with delicate golden patterns. His hair was long and silver blonde, styled with careful elegance. But it was his face that truly unsettled, pale as death itself, with rainbow-colored eyes that held slit pupils, and a smile. A constant, pleasant smile that never wavered, frozen in place like a porcelain mask. A translucent screen materialized before Ishida's eyes. Upper Moon 2 Doma. Level 110. 110, Ishida's jaw tightened imperceptibly. His eyes flickered back toward his students for just a fraction of a second. "My level is currently 79. The gap is too wide at the moment. But, oh my." The demon's voice was bright, cheerful, as if greeting old friends. "What a pleasant surprise." His rainbow eyes settled on Ishida, ignoring the 2 young slayers entirely. "The Moon Hashira himself. How wonderful to finally meet you in person. I've heard such interesting things." Doma clasped his hands together, his perpetual smile somehow growing sharper. "I sensed Kamina's presence disappear and came to investigate. To think I'd find you here instead, what excellent luck." Ishida's grip tightened on his sword, his stance shifting almost imperceptibly. When he spoke, his voice was measured, controlled. Upper Moon 2. Please, call me Doma. The demon's cheerfulness never wavered. You know, I've been quite curious about you. The Moon Hashira, such a mysterious title. Such interesting rumors. His head tilted slightly, rainbow eyes gleaming with something predatory beneath that eternal smile. I do hope you'll show me something entertaining tonight. A.N. Thanks for reading. Also, for a long time the player profile hasn't been shown or brought up, so I thought I'd give you the updated version of the player profile. Player profile. Basic info. Name Ishida Hitosuki. Age 15. Height 5 feet 8 inches. Level 79. Rank Hashira. EXP 172,340 needed for level 80. Fatigue 01/100. Combat stats. Red Heart HP 1920/1920. Attributes 0 points available. Crossed Sword Strength 148. Shield Vitality 146. High Voltage Agility 140. Brain Intelligence 82. Eye Sense 132. Special Abilities. Instant Healing. Heals 20% max HP instantly. Auto triggers below 20% HP. 30 minutes cooldown. Longevity. Immune to diseases and poisons. Immediate nullification of poison. Breathing style. Moon breathing. Forms. Dark Moon. Evening Palace. Pearl Flower Moon Gazing. Loathsome Moon. Chains. Moon Spirit Calamitous Eddy. Perpetual Night. Lonely Moon. Incessant. Mirror of Misfortune. Moonlit. Moondragon Ringtail. Waning Moon Swaths. Drilling Slashes. Moon through Bamboo Leaves. Lunar Crescendo. Gibbous Revenants. Astral Revival. Catastrophe. 10-Man Crescent Moon. Wane of Solitude. Moonbow. Half Moon. Also, comment down your prediction for the fight between Ishida and the Upper Moon 2. I would love to see your thoughts on it. Thank you very much. 105, Chapter 96, Ishida vs. Doma begins. Ishida could tell the demon's strength just by looking at him. Even in terms of raw power, this demon was superior to him by a significant margin. Even though I fought Upper Moons during system-given missions, their levels were never this high. This is surely the strongest demon in terms of level I've come up against. A one-on-one fight will probably be suicide. But, Ishida glanced back ever so slightly toward the two behind him, Sakura and Kazuki. Both were injured, and though he'd stopped the bleeding and provided basic treatment as much as he could, it probably wasn't enough for them to continue fighting. Even if they could fight, there was no way they would be any help against such an opponent. Doesn't matter. Ishida pushed aside all the thoughts and looked back at the demon with determination. As long as I am a demon slayer, and the person in front of me is a demon, I will kill him. Sakura, Kazuki, Ishida said without turning around, his voice carrying an authority that left no room for argument. Get back. Find cover and stay there. But, Kazuki started to protest. Now. The single word cut through any objections. Both apprentices felt it then, the immense pressure radiating from the demon before them. It was like standing before an avalanche, the air itself seeming to grow heavy and cold. Their bodies began to tremble involuntarily, blood running cold as primal fear gripped them. An upper moon, Sakura realized, her eyes widening. We're facing an actual upper moon. They scrambled backward, putting distance between themselves and the battlefield. Every instinct screamed at them to run further, but they couldn't, not while Ishida was still there. Ishida turned his full attention back to Doma, who watched the exchange with that perpetual, unsettling smile. How admirable, Doma said, his voice carrying an almost musical quality. Protecting your friends like that. But tell me, Moon Hashira, his rainbow eyes gleamed in the moonlight, will that noble protection matter when you're dead? You're planning to fight me alone, aren't you? How brave. How foolish. I don't need a lecture from a demon, Ishida replied, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Oh, but I'm not lecturing. I'm genuinely concerned, Doma said with exaggerated sincerity, placing a hand over his heart. You see, I can tell you're strong, for a human. But you must sense it too, don't you? The difference between us. It would be such a waste for someone of your caliber to die here. Then maybe you should run. Doma's smile widened, genuine amusement flickering in his eyes. How delightful. I haven't met someone with such spirit in quite some time. Very well then, let's see if you can back up those words. Without warning, Doma moved. His speed was incredible, closing the distance in an instant as he swung his sharpened golden fans toward Ishida's neck. Ishida's body reacted on pure instinct, his enhanced agility allowing him to lean back just enough for the fan's edge to whistle past his throat. He drew his sword in the same motion, the blade singing as it left its sheath. Moon breathing, first form, dark moon, evening palace. His blade carved through the air in precise, crescent-shaped slashes that followed the path of the moon. The attacks were simple in execution but devastating in power, each one aimed at vital points. Doma danced backward, his fans spinning to deflect the crescents. Oh, moon breathing. How fitting for the moon Hashira. And such beautiful technique too. Fatigue 03/100. Ishida didn't respond, already pressing his advantage. He closed the distance with explosive speed, his footwork perfect as he positioned himself for the next strike. But Doma was faster than he'd anticipated. Scattering lotuses. Doma swung his fans, releasing a flurry of razor-sharp ice crystals that filled the air like a blizzard of death. Moon breathing, second form, pearl flower moon gazing. Ishida's blade spun in a defensive pattern, creating a dome of crescent slashes around himself. The moonlight-infused technique shattered the incoming ice crystals, each one exploding into harmless powder before it could reach him. Fatigue 07/100. His blood demon art uses ice, Ishida analyzed, his mind working rapidly even as his body moved. Long-range attacks, wide area coverage. I need to stay close, limit his options. He burst forward from his defensive stance, using his superior agility to close the gap. Doma's eyes widened slightly, impressed, perhaps, as Ishida came within striking range. Moon breathing, fifth form, moon spirit calamitous eddy. Ishida's blade created a typhoon of slashes, forming a powerful vortex of moonlight that attacked from multiple angles simultaneously. The technique was both offensive and defensive, a whirlwind of cutting force that should have been nearly impossible to evade at close range. Doma's expression finally shifted from amusement to something resembling focus. His fans moved in a blur, blocking and deflecting with inhuman precision. Ice formed along the edges of his weapons, reinforcing them against the onslaught. Lotus vines. From Doma's fans, massive ice vines erupted, each one lined with crystalline thorns. They twisted and coiled through Ishida's vortex of slashes, seeking to entangle and pierce. Ishida's eyes tracked every movement, his enhanced senses allowing him to see the patterns in the chaos. He twisted his body, using his agility to slip between the vines while maintaining his assault. One vine grazed his shoulder, tearing through fabric and drawing a thin line of blood. Red Heart HP 1905/1920. Too close, Ishida thought, adjusting his positioning. The vine had been faster than it looked. He broke off his attack, putting distance between himself and Doma's ice constructs. The demon stood among the dissipating vines, that perpetual smile still plastered on his face, but there was something different in his eyes now, actual interest. Marvelous. Simply marvelous. Doma clapped his hands together, the sound echoing through the forest. You're actually keeping up. Most Hashira don't last this long in close combat with me. You're quite special, aren't you? Fatigue 13/100. Ishida's breathing remained controlled, steady. He could feel the exertion building, but he was nowhere near his limit yet. The demon, on the other hand, hadn't even broken a sweat, because demons didn't sweat. That was the fundamental problem, stamina. In a prolonged fight, the demon had an infinite advantage. I need to end this quickly, Ishida realized. Or find a way to create an opening for a decisive strike. What's wrong? Doma tilted his head, that unsettling smile never wavering. You've gone quiet. Are you perhaps realizing the futility of this? I could still let you go, you know. You and your little friends. Just walk away. Pretend you never saw me. You know I can't do that. Yes, I suspected as much. Doma sighed dramatically. Such dedication to duty. It's almost sad, really. Well then, his rainbow eyes gleamed with predatory excitement. Let's continue our dance, shall we? A.N. Comment. Quick. Do you think this fight is going to be interesting, or it's a bit early for Ishida to face a upper moon, that two upper moon too? Perhaps I am thinking about ending this fanfic by getting my MC killed? Who knows? Anyways, comment. Last chapter didn't have any comments. I hope you guys are reading still. 106, Chapter 97, Become Demon? The demon moved again, and this time there was no playful testing, only lethal intent. Doma closed the distance in a blur, his fans arcing toward Ishida from two different angles simultaneously. Ishida's blade came up, deflecting the first strike with a shower of sparks, but the second forced him to twist his entire body to avoid being cleaved in half. Frozen Lotus. Doma's voice rang out cheerfully as massive ice structures erupted from the ground beneath Ishida's feet. Ishida launched himself upward, using the momentum to flip over the crystalline formations. Mid-air, he angled his blade downward. Moon breathing, 10th form, drilling slashes, moon through bamboo leaves. 3 layered slashes descended in rapid succession, each one drilling through the air with devastating force. The attacks shattered Doma's ice constructs and continued toward the demon himself. Doma's fans came up in a crossguard, catching the full force of the technique. The impact created a shockwave that tore through the surrounding trees, sending splinters of wood and ice flying in all directions. Fatigue 19/100. Ishida landed in a crouch, immediately springing forward again. He couldn't give Doma time to breathe, couldn't let him establish distance for his long-range techniques. Moon breathing, 8th form, Moondragon Ringtail. His movements became fluid and unpredictable, following dragon-like patterns as he closed in. The curved attack trajectories made his strikes nearly impossible to predict, each one coming from unexpected angles. Oh my! Doma laughed, genuinely delighted as he defended against the onslaught. You're not giving me any room to work. How rude. Despite his playful tone, Ishida noticed the demon was being forced onto the defensive. His fans moved in complex patterns, barely managing to deflect each strike. But there, a gap in his guard, just for a fraction of a second. Ishida's eyes locked onto it, his entire body coiling like a spring. This was the opening he needed. Moon breathing, 16th form, Moonbow, half moon. Multiple curved slashes unleashed in rapid succession, each one building on the last. The technique was designed specifically for breaking through defenses, and Ishida poured everything into it. His blade became a storm of crescents, each one aimed at that momentary weakness in Doma's guard. For the first time, genuine surprise flashed across the demon's face. One of the slashes broke through, carving a deep gash across Doma's chest. Dark blood sprayed, and Ishida pressed his advantage, his blade already moving for the neck. Barren hanging garden. The air itself seemed to freeze. Massive ice sculptures erupted in every direction, forming an intricate garden of death. Crystalline flowers, vines, and trees materialized with such speed and density that Ishida had no choice but to break off his attack and defend. Moon breathing, 7th form, Mirror of Misfortune, Moonlit. Ishida's blade generated powerful shockwave slashes that collided with the encroaching ice. The resulting explosion of force threw him backward, away from Doma and his deadly garden. Red Heart HP, 1847/1920. Fatigue, 28/100. Ishida landed hard, skidding across the forest floor. Small cuts covered his arms and face where ice shards had gotten through his defense. His breathing was still controlled, but he could feel the strain building. That was close, he thought, watching as Doma stood in the center of his ice garden. The wound on the demon's chest was already closing, flesh knitting back together with disturbing speed. I had him. Just one more second and that actually hurt. Doma said, touching the healing wound with fascination. You really are something special. I can't remember the last time someone drew this much blood from me. His smile widened impossibly. I'm starting to understand why you're a Hashira at such a young age. You're a prodigy, aren't you? From their hiding spot in the distance, Sakura and Kazuki watched in horror and awe. He's actually fighting an upper moon, Kazuki whispered, his voice shaking, and holding his own. But look, Sakura said quietly, her eyes fixed on the battle. Every time Ishida lands a hit, it just heals. But Ishida's wounds, they don't. She was right. While Doma stood unmarked except for the rapidly closing gash, Ishida was accumulating damage, small cuts, bruises, the strain of constant high-level technique usage. It was a war of attrition that only had one possible outcome. We have to do something. Kazuki started to rise, but Sakura grabbed his arm. And what? Get in his way. We'd just be liabilities. Her grip tightened, frustration evident in her voice. We're too weak. We can't even sense half of what's happening in that fight. Back on the battlefield, Doma's ice garden began to recede, the sculptures melting away as if they'd never existed. The demon stepped forward, his fans held casually at his sides. "You know," Doma said conversationally, "I've been thinking. You're far too talented to waste your life fighting a battle you can't win. Have you ever considered not being human anymore?" Ishida's grip on his sword tightened. "What? Become a demon?" Doma spread his arms wide, as if presenting a wonderful gift. "With your current skill and my blood, you'd become extraordinarily powerful. You could protect your friends forever, never grow old, never die. Isn't that what you want? To keep them safe?" "You're insane." "Am I?" Doma tilted his head. "Think about it logically. As a human, you'll die tonight. Maybe not by my hand, I'm actually starting to like you, but eventually, one of us demons will kill you. That's the fate of all demon slayers. But as a demon, you could live forever. Continue growing stronger. Isn't that better than dying young?" Fatigue, 30/100. Ishida's breathing remained steady, his eyes never leaving Doma. "I'd rather die human than live as a monster." "How disappointing." Doma's smile didn't waver, but something cold entered his voice. "And here I thought you were intelligent. Well, if you're so determined to throw your life away." The temperature dropped dramatically. Frost began forming on the trees, on the ground, on every surface. Doma's fans began to glow with an ethereal light. "Let me grant you a beautiful death, at least. You've earned that much." The demon's killing intent filled the air like a physical force. Even from their distant position, Sakura and Kazuki felt it, a crushing, overwhelming pressure that made breathing difficult. Ishida adjusted his stance, his sword held ready. His mind raced through calculations, strategies, possibilities. The demon was stronger, faster, and had virtually unlimited stamina. A prolonged fight favored Doma completely. "I need to end this in one strike," Ishida thought. "But to create that opening, I'll need to take risks. Possibly fatal ones." His eyes flickered briefly toward where Sakura and Kazuki were hidden, then back to Doma. "No choice. If I don't stop him here, he'll kill them next. And then countless others." Ishida's grip on his sword adjusted slightly, his breathing pattern shifting into a new rhythm. The air around him seemed to shimmer, moonlight gathering along his blade despite the thick forest canopy above. "Moon breathing." He began, his voice low and focused. Doma's expression shifted, his instincts warning him of danger. "Oh, you're going all out now. How exciting." The forest held its breath, two warriors facing each other in the darkness. One a demon of immeasurable power, the other a young Hashira determined to protect those behind him, no matter the cost. The real battle was about to begin. A.N. Power Stones, guys. Drop some. 107, Chapter 98, The 13th Form? Moon Breathing, 14th Form, Catastrophe, 10-man Crescent Moon. Ishida's blade erupted with concentrated power, creating a devastating whirlpool of crescent slashes that converged on Doma from every conceivable angle. The technique was one of his most powerful, a finishing move designed to overwhelm even the strongest defenses. Doma's eyes widened, his playful demeanor finally cracking. Crystalline divine child. A massive ice statue of a child materialized before him, its frozen surface reflecting the moonlight. Ishida's technique collided with the construct in an explosion of force that shook the entire mountainside. Ice shattered and reformed, crescent slashes carved deep gouges into the crystalline surface, and for a moment, it seemed as though Ishida's attack might break through entirely. But when the dust settled, the statue still stood, cracked and damaged, but intact. Behind it, Doma's smile had returned. "Impressive. You actually damaged one of my strongest defensive techniques." The demon's voice carried genuine admiration. "But I'm afraid that's not quite enough." Fatigue, 37/100. Ishida's breathing was heavier now, though still controlled. That technique had taken a significant toll, and he hadn't achieved the decisive blow he'd hoped for. "His defensive capabilities are beyond what I anticipated," Ishida analyzed, already repositioning. "I'll need to." Winter icicles. Doma's fans swept through the air, and suddenly the space between them filled with hundreds of razor-sharp ice projectiles, each one aimed with lethal precision. Moon breathing, 9th form, waning moon swaths. Ishida's blade created waves of moonlight, combining vertical and horizontal slashes to intercept the incoming barrage. Ice shattered against his technique, but there were too many. Several broke through his defense. One pierced his left thigh. Another grazed his ribs. A third carved a line across his cheek. Red Heart HP 1763/1920. Fatigue 43/100. Ishida gritted his teeth against the pain, refusing to slow down. He couldn't afford to. The moment he lost momentum, Doma would overwhelm him with those long-range attacks. He pushed forward through the ice storm, his enhanced agility allowing him to weave between the projectiles even as blood dripped from his wounds. His blade never stopped moving, deflecting what he couldn't dodge, creating openings where none existed. Moon breathing, third form, loathsome moon, chains. Chained crescent slashes formed an interconnected pattern that swept through the remaining icicles, clearing a path directly to Doma. Ishida burst through, closing the distance in an instant. Moon breathing, 11th form, lunar crescendo. His technique built with each strike, power accumulating with every slash. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each attack flowing into the next, building toward a devastating final blow. Doma's fans moved to intercept, but the increasing force of each strike pushed him back, his defense struggling to keep pace with the escalating power. The final slash came with all of Ishida's remaining strength behind it, a crescent of pure moonlight aimed directly at Doma's neck. The demon's eyes flashed with something that might have been concern. At the last possible moment, he twisted his body with inhuman flexibility, the blade missing his neck by a hair's breadth but carving a deep gash across his shoulder instead. Scattering lotuses. Doma's counter came immediately, forcing Ishida to disengage or be shredded by the point-blank ice barrage. Red Heart HP 1691/1920. Fatigue 53/100. Both combatants created distance, reassessing. Ishida's uniform was torn and bloodied, his breathing more labored now. Doma's shoulder wound was already healing, but there was something different in his expression, less amusement, more calculation. "You're pushing yourself too hard," Doma observed. "I can see it in your breathing, in the slight tremor in your sword arm. How much longer can you maintain this level of intensity?" From their hiding spot, Sakura's hands clenched into fists. "He's slowing down." "Not much, but..." "I see it too," Kazuki whispered, his voice tight with worry. "But what can we do? We just get in the way." "Maybe." Sakura's mind raced, searching for any possible way to help. "Maybe if we could create a distraction, just for a moment." "No." Kazuki's hand stopped her before she could move. "Look at him. Really look. He's not just fighting. He's protecting us. If we rush in now, we'd be throwing away his sacrifice." Sakura's jaw clenched, frustration and helplessness warring in her expression. "Then we just watch. While we bear witness," Kazuki said quietly, his eyes never leaving the battlefield. "And we remember. That's all we can do right now." Back in the battle, Ishida's mind was racing through options. His stamina was depleting faster than he'd anticipated. The wounds were manageable individually, but their accumulated effect was beginning to show. And Doma was barely scratched. "I need something decisive. Something he can't defend against." "But what?" "You're thinking too hard," Doma said, as if reading his thoughts. "I can see it in your eyes. Trying to calculate, trying to find that perfect opening. But there isn't one, Moon Hashira. I'm simply stronger than you." The demon's fans began to glow again, frost spreading across the ground. Cold white princesses. Two massive ice dolls materialized on either side of Doma, their crystalline forms beautiful and terrifying. They moved with fluid grace, advancing on Ishida from multiple angles while Doma himself prepared another attack. Moon breathing, 15th form, Wane of Solitude. Ishida's blade created a perfect circle of moonlight around himself, a defensive barrier that blocked the ice doll's initial assault. But he couldn't maintain it indefinitely, the technique required constant focus and energy. Fatigue, 60/100. This is bad, Ishida thought, his analytical mind cutting through the desperation. At this rate, I'll burn through my stamina before I can land a killing blow. I need to change tactics. But to what? Doma watched with that infuriating smile, clearly in no rush. He could afford to be patient. Time was his ally. "You know," the demon said conversationally, even as his ice constructs pressed their attack, "I genuinely respect you, Moon Hashira. Your technique is beautiful, your determination admirable. It's such a shame you're going to die here." Ishida's eyes narrowed, his breathing pattern shifting once more. If conventional attacks wouldn't work, if defense was unsustainable, then perhaps. "I'll need to gamble everything on that technique," I have to try it. His grip on his sword tightened, moonlight beginning to gather around the blade with renewed intensity. The air itself seemed to still, as if the forest recognized what was coming. Moon breathing. Ishida's voice was low, steady, carrying a finality that made even Doma pause. 13th form, astral revival. The moonlight around his blade intensified, taking on an almost purifying quality. This technique, one designed specifically for combating demonic energy, was his best form to fight against demon. Doma's smile faded completely for the first time. His instincts, honed over centuries, screamed danger. How interesting, the demon said softly. You've been holding back your trump card. Very well then, let's see if it's enough. The temperature plummeted even further. The ice dolls accelerated their assault. Doma's fans began to glow with unprecedented intensity. And in the center of it all, Ishida stood ready, his blade shining with captured moonlight, prepared to stake everything on a single strike. The decisive moment had arrived. 108, Chapter 99, Ishida pushing his limits. Ishida's blade pulsed with purifying moonlight, the energy concentrating to dangerous levels. The 13th form wasn't just an attack, it was designed to actively combat and nullify demonic essence itself. But using it required channeling an enormous amount of power through his body, which could cause a lot of fatigue and take out HP as well. Fatigue, 62/100. The ice dolls surged forward, their crystalline bodies gleaming as they closed in from both sides. Behind them, Doma raised his fans, preparing his own devastating technique. Rime Water Lily Bodhisattva. A massive ice bodhisattva statue materialized behind Doma, its serene face belying the lethal intent behind its creation. The temperature dropped so drastically that Ishida's breath became visible, frost forming on his eyelashes. But Ishida didn't waver. His focus remained absolute, the moonlight around his blade growing brighter, more intense. He could feel the strain on his body, muscles screaming, wounds burning, fatigue clawing at his consciousness, but he pushed it all aside. One strike. Everything depends on one strike. The ice dolls reached him first. His blade moved in a blur, the purifying moonlight slicing through their crystalline forms. Unlike before, when his strikes merely damaged the ice constructs, this time they shattered completely, unable to regenerate in the face of the 13th form's anti-demonic properties. Fatigue, 65/100. Impressive. Doma's voice carried genuine excitement. That technique of yours isn't just powerful, it's specifically designed to counter demons. How innovative. The Bodhisattva's massive hands swept forward, each one capable of crushing Ishida like an insect. Ishida launched himself upward, using his agility to vault over the first hand while his blade carved through the second. The purifying moonlight ate through the ice like acid through paper. But the exertion was taking its toll. Each use of the 13th form drained him significantly more than his other techniques. Fatigue, 69/100. Red Heart HP, 1578/1920. I can't maintain this much longer, Ishida realized, even as he pressed forward. Maybe 30 seconds. 40 at most. It has to be enough. But he closed the distance to Doma, his blade trailing moonlight as he moved. The demon's fans came up to block, but this time when metal met metal, Doma actually had to give ground. The purifying energy was actively working against his demonic nature, weakening his defenses. Moon breathing, 13th form, Ishida's voice was strained but determined, astral revival. His blade descended in a perfect arc, the concentrated purifying energy forming a crescent that seemed to cut through reality itself. Doma's eyes widened as he brought both fans up in a desperate crossblock. The impact was cataclysmic. A shockwave of force and purifying light exploded outward, obliterating trees and carving a trench into the mountainside. For a moment, everything was consumed by brilliant white light. When it faded, both combatants had been thrown back. Ishida landed hard, one knee touching the ground as he struggled to maintain his stance. Blood dripped from new wounds, the recoil of such a powerful technique had torn open cuts along his arms where the energy had exceeded his body's capacity to contain it. Red Heart HP, 1489/1920. Fatigue, 77/100. But Doma was actually damaged. One of his fans had been shattered, fragments of the golden weapon scattered across the ground. More importantly, a deep gash ran across his chest, one that wasn't healing as quickly as his previous wounds. The purifying energy was still working, actively fighting against his regeneration. Ah! Doma touched the wound, his expression shifting between fascination and genuine discomfort. This actually hurts. Not just physically, but it's like your technique is burning away my very essence. He looked up at Ishida with something approaching respect. You really are extraordinary, Moon Hashira. Ishida forced himself to stand, though his legs trembled with the effort. His breathing was ragged now, control slipping as exhaustion clawed at him. The moonlight around his blade flickered, unstable. Can't maintain the form much longer, he thought, fighting to stay conscious. One more attack. Maybe two. That's all I have left. But Doma seemed to sense this as well. Despite his injury, despite the pain he was clearly experiencing, his smile returned, though it was sharper now, more predatory. You're at your limit, the demon observed. That technique of yours, it's killing you almost as much as it's hurting me. Your body can't handle that much power. He discarded his broken fan, focusing his energy into the remaining one. But I respect your determination. So I'll end this with my strongest technique. The air around Doma began to crystallize, ice forming in intricate patterns that spread like a plague. The massive bodhisattva statue behind him raised its hands once more, but this time they began to glow with concentrated cold, frozen cloud haze. A massive cloud of microscopic ice particles erupted from Doma's position, spreading outward like a tidal wave. Each particle was razor-sharp, capable of shredding flesh and freezing blood. Worse, they were so numerous and so small that normal defensive techniques would be useless, they would simply slip through any gaps. Ishida's eyes tracked the approaching death, his mind calculating possibilities even as his body screamed for rest. The 13th form can purify it, but I'd need to maintain the technique continuously to create a barrier. That would drain what little stamina I have left. Or, his grip on his sword shifted, his breathing pattern changing despite the exhaustion. There was one other option. One final gamble. If I release all the remaining purifying energy in a single burst, I might be able to clear a path straight to him. But that would leave me completely defenseless afterward. No energy for defense, no stamina for evasion. It would be all or nothing. The frozen cloud was seconds away now, its touch promising a frozen death. Doma stood behind it, confident in his victory. From their hiding spot, Sakura and Kazuki could only watch in horror as the deadly technique approached their mentor. Ishida. Sakura whispered, her voice breaking. Ishida made his decision. Moon breathing, 13th form, astral revival. His voice rang out clear despite his exhaustion, lunar purge. Every ounce of purifying energy remaining in his technique exploded outward in a massive sphere of moonlight. The frozen cloud collided with it and simply ceased to exist. The particles purified out of existence before they could even touch him. Fatigue, 89/100. But the technique didn't stop there. The sphere of purifying moonlight continued expanding, carving a path straight through Doma's technique and toward the demon himself. Doma's eyes widened in genuine alarm. Impossible. He had no time to dodge, no time to mount a proper defense. The purifying light engulfed him, and for the first time, the upper moon too screamed. When the light faded, Doma stood with severe burns across his body, smoke rising from wounds that fought against his regeneration. His remaining fan had been destroyed. He looked, for the first time, truly hurt. But Ishida. Red Heart HP 1412/1920. Fatigue 94/100. Ishida collapsed to one knee, his sword barely keeping him upright as he used it like a cane. The moonlight around his blade had completely vanished. His arms trembled uncontrollably. Blood seeped from numerous wounds, some old, many new from the strain of his final technique. He had nothing left. No energy for another attack. Barely enough strength to stand. And Doma, despite his injuries, was still alive. Still regenerating. Slowly, painfully, but inevitably. The demon looked at Ishida with an expression that mixed pain, respect, and something that might have been sadness. You actually pushed me this far, Doma said, his voice lacking its usual cheerfulness. No one has done that in over a century. You should be proud, Moon Hashira. You truly are remarkable. He took a step forward, his wounds visibly closing despite the lingering purifying energy fighting against them. But remarkable isn't enough to kill an upper moon. 109, Chapter 100, Switching Fighting Style Mid-Battle. Ishida's body trembled as he forced himself to rise, using his sword as leverage. Every muscle screamed in protest, his vision blurring at the edges from sheer exhaustion. Is this how strong an upper moon truly is? He thought, watching Doma's wounds slowly but steadily close. Even as a Hashira, even with all these breathing forms at my disposal, he'll simply regenerate. No matter what I do. His jaw clenched, frustration and desperation warring within him. No, that's probably the difference between a human and a demon like him. The fundamental gap that can't be bridged by skill alone. But then, a thought cut through the fog of exhaustion. But I'm not a mere human, am I? His hand moved to his side, fingers touching what appeared to be empty air. The system inventory responded to his will, and a small vial materialized in his palm, a crystalline bottle filled with glowing azure liquid. He'd obtained it months ago during a system-generated mission, a reward for clearing a particularly difficult mission. Unlike the standard healing potions that restored HP, this was something different, a stamina recovery drink. The system had described it as working like a concentrated energy drink, bypassing normal physical limitations to restore vitality and reduce fatigue. He'd been saving it, waiting for a moment when he truly needed it. This was that moment. Without hesitation, Ishida uncorked the vial and drank its contents in one swift motion. The liquid burned going down, but it was a good burn, like fire racing through his veins, driving back the exhaustion. Fatigue, 94/150/110/100. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The trembling in his limbs ceased. His vision cleared. His breathing steadied. It wasn't a complete recovery, his wounds still ached, his HP remained dangerously low, but the crushing exhaustion that had been dragging him down lifted like a fog burning away under the morning sun. Doma paused in his approach, his rainbow eyes narrowing as he observed the sudden change. "What did you just drink?" the demon asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "Some kind of medicine? A stimulant, perhaps?" He tilted his head, studying Ishida with renewed interest. "How fascinating. I've never seen a demon slayer carry such things. Most of you rely purely on your breathing techniques to push past your limits." Ishida didn't respond, instead rolling his shoulders and adjusting his grip on his sword. His body still carried the damage from their battle, the cuts, the bruises, the internal strain, but the crippling fatigue that had been threatening to drag him into unconsciousness was gone. "You're full of surprises, Moon Hashira," Doma continued, his smile returning though his eyes remained calculating. "First that purifying technique, and now this. You're more prepared than I gave you credit for." The demon's wounds had closed further, though traces of the purifying energy still lingered, slowing his regeneration to a crawl compared to his usual speed. His fans were destroyed, leaving him to rely solely on his blood demon art. "But tell me," Doma said, taking another step forward, "how long will that medicine last? An hour? 10 minutes? Or perhaps?" His smile widened. "Only a few moments." Ishida's mind raced, calculating his options with renewed clarity. The elixir had bought him time, given him a second wind, but Doma was right, it wasn't permanent. Continuous fight would again take it back to the same high as last time. Also, he has only one of those potions with him. With the fact that the instant healing skill he had given by system, only worked on HP recovery, which means, even if he used that, it won't bring his fatigue down by a lot. "I need to make this count," he thought, his breathing pattern shifting into a combat-ready rhythm. No more holding back. No more testing. This is it. But the moonlight around his blade began to gather once more, though it flickered, his body still remembered the strain of the 13th form, even if the fatigue had been temporarily suppressed. Doma noticed the gathering energy and laughed, the sound echoing through the devastated forest. "You're going to use that technique again? After it nearly tore you apart the first time? How wonderfully reckless." From their hiding spot, Sakura gripped Kazuki's arm tightly. "Did you see that? He just recovered somehow." "What was that?" "I don't know," Kazuki whispered back, his eyes wide. "But he's not done yet. He's still fighting." Ishida's eyes locked onto Doma, determination burning through the pain and exhaustion. "Let's finish this," he said quietly. The demon's smile turned predatory. "Yes, let's." The air between them seemed to crystallize with tension. But something had changed in Ishida, not just his restored stamina, but his entire demeanor. The desperate edge was gone, replaced by a calm, almost meditative focus. His breathing shifted into a perfect rhythm. Not the heavy, strained breathing of before, but something more refined, each breath precisely measured, each exhale perfectly timed. His movements became economical, no wasted motion, no excess energy spent. Every technique costs stamina. Every unnecessary movement is wasted energy, Ishida thought, his mind crystal clear. I need to fight like I have nothing left, even though I do. Precision over power. Efficiency over spectacle. Fatigue, 10/100. Doma moved first, his body blurring as he closed the distance. Without his fans, he relied purely on his physical abilities and blood demon art, but those alone were formidable enough. Freezing cloud. Ice particles materialized around his hands, forming razor-sharp claws. Ishida's response was minimal, a slight shift of his feet, a precise angle of his blade. Doma's strike passed within inches of his face, and Ishida's counter came not as a powerful slash, but as a surgical cut aimed at the demon's extended wrist. Fatigue, 11/100. The moonlight along his blade was subdued now, concentrated rather than explosive. The cut wasn't deep, but it was precise, targeting tendons and joints. Doma pulled back, surprised by the shift in tactics. Oh, you're being more careful now. How smart. Ishida didn't respond, his focus absolute. He took a single step forward, not a charge, not a rush, but a measured advance. His breathing remained perfectly controlled. Don't chase. Don't overcommit. Make him come to me, then punish his aggression. The demon seemed to recognize the change in strategy. His smile flickered, becoming more calculating. Crystalline divine child. The massive ice statue reformed, its hands sweeping toward Ishida. But this time, Ishida didn't meet the attack head-on with overwhelming force. Instead, he moved with fluid precision, his enhanced agility allowing him to slip between the statue's fingers. His blade flickered out twice, once, twice, each strike targeting the joints of the construct rather than trying to destroy it outright. Fatigue, 13/100. The statue's hands seized up, its movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. Not destroyed, but crippled. Efficient. From their hiding spot, Kazuki leaned forward, his eyes wide. What is he doing? He's barely using any power in his strikes. He's conserving energy, Sakura whispered, realization dawning. He's fighting completely differently than before. Every movement is calculated. She was right. Where before Ishida had fought with explosive power and devastating techniques, now he moved like water, finding the path of least resistance, exploiting weaknesses rather than overwhelming them with force. Doma launched another assault, ice forming into deadly projectiles. Winter icicles. Moon breathing, second form, pearl flower moon gazing. Ishida's defensive technique manifested, but not as the overwhelming dome of before. Instead, it was compact, precise, covering only the exact space needed. The icicles shattered against it, and the moment the barrage ended, the technique dissolved. Fatigue, 16/100. 3% for a full defensive technique, Ishida calculated. Acceptable. But I can do better. He was learning, adapting in real time. Each technique refined, each movement optimized. His breathing never wavered, maintaining that perfect rhythm that kept his body operating at peak efficiency. Doma's expression shifted, genuine intrigue replacing his usual playful demeanor. Fascinating. You're treating this like a marathon rather than a sprint now. But tell me, ice began forming around him in elaborate patterns. How long can you maintain such perfect control? The demon's body language changed, becoming more serious. He was done playing. Let's test those limits, shall we? The ice around Doma erupted outward in a massive wave, far larger than any of his previous attacks. It wasn't just an assault, it was an attempt to overwhelm through sheer scale, to force Ishida into using his more costly techniques. But Ishida's eyes tracked the attack with perfect clarity, his breathing unwavering. He could see the gaps in the formation, the weaknesses in the structure. Moon breathing, 8th form, Moondragon ringtail. His movement was serpentine, following the dragon-like pattern, but refined. Where before he would have used raw power to smash through obstacles, now he threaded through them, his blade striking only when it would have maximum effect with minimum effort. Fatigue, 21/100. Each strike targeted the structural weak points in Doma's ice formations, causing them to collapse not from overwhelming force but from surgical precision. It was like watching a master craftsman dismantle a complex mechanism, no wasted motion, no unnecessary force. Moon breathing, 3rd form, loathsome moon, chains. The chained crescents that formed weren't the massive, room-filling attacks from before. Instead, they were compact, interconnected strikes that created a defensive perimeter while simultaneously pressuring Doma, forcing the demon to maintain distance. Fatigue 24/100. Doma found himself being pushed back, not by overwhelming power, but by relentless, efficient pressure. Every time he tried to mount an offensive, Ishida's minimal but precise counters disrupted his rhythm. Every attempt to create distance was met with just enough forward pressure to prevent him from establishing his preferred range. "You've changed your entire approach," Doma observed, his smile strained now. "This is problematic." For the first time, the upper moon seemed genuinely concerned. Not about losing, he was still far from that, but about the implications of Ishida's adaptation. He's learning mid-battle, Doma thought. Not just adapting his tactics, but fundamentally changing his combat philosophy. If he keeps this up, Ishida's blade gleamed with controlled moonlight, his breathing still perfect, his movements still economical. His HP was still enough HIG, his body still carried its wounds, but his fatigue was climbing at a manageable pace. "I can maintain this," Ishida thought, his focus unwavering. "Not forever. But long enough." The question was, long enough for what? HP 1510/1920. Fatigue 24/100. 110, Chapter 101. The Sunlight Wins. HP 1244/1920. Fatigue 73/100. The fight went on, like there was no end to it. Ishida had no intention of being taken down by one of the strongest Kazuki of the 12 and Upper Moon 2, Doma. On the other hand, the Upper Moon 2, Doma, was surprised that a human, after all these years of him becoming a demon, was able to keep up with him in a fight for this long. "The morning sun will be seen soon. I am sure you are happy about it." Ishida positioned himself in fighting stance, his blade held in front of him with a determined expression. "I wouldn't describe it as happy." Doma chuckled slightly at Ishida's response, finding it somehow funny. "Then, what will be the description, if I may hear it?" "It's..." Ishida immediately launched himself for his next attack. "Infuriating," he said. "I see," Doma replied. "Though, I sure don't understand why you would feel infuriated when it's you who will be saved from death because of the sunlight." He immediately launched an attack directed toward Ishida, who was finding an opening at the same time. Scattering lotuses. The ice crystals filled the air in a deadly blizzard, but Ishida's response was measured. He shifted his stance minimally and spun his body mid-flight, his blade moving in tight, controlled arcs that deflected only what was necessary. Several crystals grazed his uniform, but none found flesh. Fatigue 75/100. 2%, Ishida noted. Better than the defensive dome. Moon breathing, first form, dark moon, evening palace. The crescent slash that followed was precise, aimed not at Doma directly but at the source of his ice formation, disrupting the technique at its origin rather than trying to overpower its execution. The ice crystals dissipated as their generating force was interrupted. Fatigue 78/100. Ishida landed swiftly back to his position, taking a slight breather, trying to steady his breath as much as he could even with the increasing fatigue. "Let me ask you something honestly, Moon Hashira," Doma spoke, already preparing for his next attack. "Do you really think there is even a single chance of you defeating me?" Ishida's only response was to advance another measured step, his breathing rhythm unchanged. His sword remained at the ready, neither aggressive nor defensive, simply present. The demon created distance, ice forming beneath his feet to propel him backward. Cold white princesses. The ice dolls manifested again, but this time Ishida didn't engage them directly. Instead, he moved past them, his agility allowing him to slip through their formation like smoke. His blade flicked out once, twice, surgical strikes that severed the connection between Doma and his constructs. Fatigue 81/100. The dolls collapsed, their animating force disrupted. "Impressive," Doma admitted, though his smile had become something sharper. "Sunlight is almost visible," Sakura muttered to Kazuki from the sideline. "Though, it might take a few moments to penetrate through the forest. Still minimum 8 to 10 minutes left. Should we help now? Maybe we can help him get through the remaining time," Kazuki suggested. "If he needs our help, he'll definitely tell us. If we jump in now, we just get in the way." "Come on, we took down Lower Moon 6 moments ago, remember?" Kazuki said. "Let's wait and see. There's not much time left until sunlight." Doma spoke with a smirk on his face, as Ishida looked tired, his body almost giving up. He stood with his blade in the ground and one hand holding it. If you can survive these attacks from here on for the remaining time, I would say you would have earned the chance to be alive to face me a second time, which no one has ever done, nonetheless. Doma's eyes glinted like shards of ice under moonlight. His fan snapped open with a crisp flutter. "Let's make it beautiful, shall we?" he said softly, almost tenderly. Frozen lotus. In an instant, the air itself turned crystalline. Dozens of ice lotuses bloomed midair, each petal shimmering with deathly grace. Their presence was almost serene, until the freezing wind they carried bit into Ishida's exposed skin, stealing warmth from his very breath. Ishida's vision blurred momentarily. His body screamed at him to stop moving, but his instincts took over. His footwork shortened, conserving motion. His sword moved in subtle patterns, tight, controlled, efficient. The first lotus burst beside him, an explosion of razor-edged petals. The ground froze solid, cracks forming like spiderwebs across the forest floor. The shockwave sent dust and frost spiraling upward. HP 1078/1920. Fatigue 84/100. He exhaled, slow and measured. "Still manageable," he muttered, more to himself than to his opponent. But Doma wasn't done. The fan in his left hand flicked upward, releasing a shimmering wave that froze the mist in the air. Frozen mist, icicle lotus. The air turned into a storm of glittering spears. Each shard sang as it sliced through space, faster than sound, sharper than thought. Ishida's blade moved instinctively now, tracing arcs of silver and shadow. Every deflection sent shockwaves up his arm. The cold bit deep into his knuckles. Too many, too fast. Flame breathing, fourth form, blooming flame undulation. A circular slash carved through the air in front of Ishida, creating a defensive wall of flames that melted several incoming ice projectiles. Kazuki landed beside him, his breathing heavy but determined. "Kazuki!" Ishida started. Water breathing, fourth form, striking tide. Sakura appeared on Ishida's other side, her blade creating multiple simultaneous strikes that intercepted and shattered a cluster of ice shards coming from the left flank. "We're not letting you fight alone anymore," Sakura declared, her eyes fierce despite the fear she felt facing the upper moon. Doma's smile widened. "Oh, the little ones want to play too. How adorable." Moon breathing, first form, dark moon, evening palace. Ishida's crescent slash cut through another wave of ice projectiles, his movements still precise despite his exhaustion. The three of them formed a defensive triangle, each covering angles the others couldn't reach. Fatigue 89/100. Then, like a blessing from the heavens themselves, the faintest ray of golden light pierced through the dense forest canopy. It was weak, barely visible, but unmistakable, sunlight. Doma's expression shifted instantly. The playful smile vanished, replaced by cold calculation. He took a step backward, away from where the light was beginning to filter through. "Ah, it seems our time is up," he said, his tone carrying genuine disappointment. "How unfortunate. We were just getting to the good part." He turned to leave, but paused, glancing back at Ishida with something approaching respect. "You know, in my lifetime as a demon, I've killed many Hashira. Strong ones, skilled ones, determined ones." His rainbow eyes met Ishida's with an intensity that was almost admiring. "But this is the first time I've failed to kill one who stood before me for so long. You're quite remarkable, Moon Hashira. I look forward to our next meeting." "Wait." Sakura suddenly burst forward, her blade raised to strike at the retreating demon. "Sakura, no." Ishida's voice cut through, sharp with command. But it was too late, she was already in motion. Doma turned his head slightly, his expression shifting to one of playful smirk. "Ah, such an ugly expression. You really shouldn't ruin your face with anger, it doesn't suit you at all." Sakura skidded to a halt, her face flushing with a mixture of anger and humiliation. "What did you just?" But Doma was already gone, disappearing into the shadows of the forest with inhuman speed, fleeing from the approaching sunlight. "That bastard!" Sakura started, her grip tightening on her sword. A heavy thud interrupted her. Ishida had collapsed to one knee, his sword planted in the ground as the only thing keeping him upright. His breathing was ragged, each breath a conscious effort as he tried to employ total concentration breathing to manage the damage his body had sustained. HP 1078/1920. Fatigue 92/100. Ishida. Both Sakura and Kazuki rushed to his side immediately, their earlier anger and adrenaline replaced with concern. Kazuki knelt beside him, his hands hovering uncertainly. Should we? I'm fine, Ishida managed between controlled breaths, though his trembling arms suggested otherwise. He looked up at both of them, and despite his exhausted state, there was something like pride in his eyes. Good work, both of you. Sakura's eyes widened slightly, the demon's insult momentarily forgotten. We just did what we could. You came when it mattered, Ishida said, his breathing slowly stabilizing as his technique worked to manage his condition. That's what counts. Kazuki looked at the destruction around them, the frozen ground, the shattered trees, the gouges carved into the earth. You fought an upper moon for hours. And survived. That's insane. Survival isn't victory, Ishida replied quietly, finally managing to steady his breathing enough to speak normally. It's not enough. The sunlight was growing stronger now, filtering through the forest canopy in golden beams. The nightmare of the night was finally over. But, a question and doubt filled Ishida's mind. I am strong enough yet. And a determined vow too. I will get stronger. If I can't beat Upper Moon, there are still two stronger than him. There is no way I will be able to keep up against them. I need to grow, train and get stronger. 111, Chapter 102 Mitsurai Kenroji. One day later. Ishida was laying down in his mansion, in his own room, when finally his eyes opened. He immediately sat up, realizing where he was as he looked around his familiar surroundings. It's my room. What happened? Did I lose consciousness back then? He tried to recall the situation and the incident of the fight against Upper Moon 2, Doma, and the way he was exhausted at the end, losing consciousness after Doma fled due to the sunlight. Where are Sakura and Kazuki? He looked around his room and stood up. His body felt completely fine at this moment. He walked out through the door. As he stepped out from his room, there was no one outside. He began thinking about where they could be, then looked down at his body. He was fine, but how long had he been unconscious? As he was questioning a few more things, someone knocked at the door. He walked up and opened it to find Mitsurai Kenroji, the love Hashira, standing outside with a bright smile on her face. Ishida-san, you're awake. She exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with genuine relief and joy. I'm so glad. I was getting worried, You've been sleeping for so long, and I kept wondering when you'd wake up. She bounced slightly on her feet, the large bundle of food in her arms shifting with her movement. Ishida blinked, slightly surprised to see her here at his mansion. Noticing his confusion, Mitsurai's cheeks flushed slightly pink. Oh, I should explain. I brought you some food. I made pancakes, lots of them, and some rice balls, and tempura, and a hage, and, well, I thought you'd be hungry when you woke up. She held up the containers enthusiastically. The master asked me to check on you since I was nearby, and I thought, why not bring something delicious? Food always makes recovery better, don't you think? Thank you, Kenroji-san. That's very thoughtful of you, Ishida said, stepping aside to let her in. Mitsurai walked inside, carefully setting the food containers on a nearby table. The aroma of fresh cooking filled the room immediately. How long was I unconscious? Ishida asked. 1 day. Mitsurai replied, turning to face him. Well, a full day and a bit more, actually. The Corps was informed about your fight through the Kashigai crows, and they sent Kakushi to bring all 3 of you back. You were brought here, and all 3 of you were treated. She giggled slightly, putting a hand to her mouth. Funnily enough, even with the most wounds, you were the one who recovered the fastest. The medical team was amazed. Her expression then shifted to one of admiration, her eyes shining. Fighting an upper moon for that long. Ishida-san, that's incredible. You're so strong and brave. Not many people could do what you did. Where are Sakura and Kazuki? Ishida asked, his concern evident. Oh, they're at the Butterfly Mansion. Mitsurai replied cheerfully. They're getting treated there. Though they're fine now, they've already started recovery training. Shinobu-san said they were surprisingly resilient for their experience level. They must have learned a lot from you. Ishida nodded, relief washing over him. Well then, I should leave you to rest and eat. Mitsurai said, clasping her hands together. Make sure you eat everything. You need to regain your strength. She started walking toward the door, but paused just before reaching it. Oh, and when you get some time, the master wanted to meet with you. He said there's no rush, just when you're feeling better. With that, she gave him one more bright smile and stepped outside, closing the door gently behind her. Ishida stood there for a moment, processing everything. Then his expression darkened slightly as he looked down at his hands. No, I was weak. I was way too weak, he muttered to himself. I thought I had grown stronger, but... He remembered the fight, the overwhelming power, the near-death experience, the helplessness he'd felt despite all his techniques. He was Upper Moon too. That means there's one stronger than him as well. And then Muzan himself. His jaw clenched. If I can't even beat Doma, it's pointless to think about defeating Muzan. I need to grow stronger. Much stronger. But then his stomach let out a loud, unmistakable grumble. He looked over at the food Mitsurai had brought, and despite the dark thoughts swirling in his mind, he couldn't help but acknowledge the more immediate concern. I've been out for too long. The hunger is real, he said to himself with a slight sigh. Let's eat something first. Moments later, he sat down at the table, looking at the spread of food before him. Steam still rose from the pancakes, and everything looked carefully and lovingly prepared. Thanks for the food, Kanroji-san, he said quietly to the empty room. He took a bite of the pancake, and his eyes widened slightly. It was delicious, perfectly fluffy, sweet but not overwhelming, with just the right texture. Despite everything weighing on his mind, despite the looming threats and his perceived inadequacies, in this moment, he could at least appreciate this small comfort. He continued eating, his mind already beginning to form plans for the training that would come next. 112, Chapter 103, The Warmth of the Master's Presence. After eating, Ishida got freshened up once again and got ready before walking out from his mansion, his destination being the Butterfly Mansion to visit both Sakura and Kazuki. But as soon as he walked out, Ishida. Both Sakura and Kazuki were standing right outside his door, looking like they'd been waiting there for a while. You're finally awake. Kazuki exclaimed, his voice cracking slightly with emotion. Man, I seriously thought you weren't going to wake up. You looked half dead when they carried you back. Don't be so dramatic, Sakura said, though her voice wavered slightly. But, yeah, we were worried. You've been out for a whole day. I heard you two were supposed to be at the Butterfly Mansion doing recovery training, Ishida said, raising an eyebrow. We were. Kazuki said quickly. But when we heard you woke up, we ran over here immediately. Shinobu-san wasn't too happy about us leaving without permission, but we needed to see for ourselves that you were okay, Sakura finished, crossing her arms but unable to hide the relief in her eyes. Kazuki scratched the back of his head sheepishly. When they brought us back, you looked pretty bad. All those wounds, the exhaustion. I've never seen you like that before. It was scary. Yeah, Sakura added quietly. We thought maybe fighting an Upper Moon was too much, even for you. Ishida's expression softened slightly. I'm fine. Takes more than that to keep me down. Clearly. Kazuki laughed, the tension breaking. You recovered faster than both of us combined. What are you made of? Stubbornness, apparently, Sakura muttered, but there was a small smile on her face. Ishida's expression turned more serious. Speaking of recovery, the insect Hashira mentioned you two were doing recovery training. How's that going? Oh, Shinobu-san is amazing. Sakura said enthusiastically. She's really kind and helpful. We recovered really fast with her assistance. The medical knowledge she has is incredible. Though it's nothing compared to your recovery, Kazuki added with a grin. Seriously, how do you bounce back so fast? Sakura's expression shifted to something more curious. Actually, Ishida. Shinobu-san mentioned something. She said that after you became a Hashira and we became your Tsugyuko, it was you all along giving us our missions. Is that true? Ishida nodded. It is. Though I try to assign missions according to your skill level and follow core regulations according to your rank. Speaking of rank, Kazuki burst out excitedly. We got promoted. Sakura finished, unable to contain her excitement. After defeating Lower Moon 6, we both got rank promotions. My rank is Hinoto now. Sakura announced proudly. And mine is Hano. Kazuki added, puffing out his chest slightly. That's good, Ishida said with a small nod of approval. You both earned it. I want to become a Hashira soon. Kazuki exclaimed suddenly, his eyes blazing with determination. Ishida, you have to train me to get there. I want to reach your level. You idiot, Sakura said, smacking him lightly on the arm. You can't become a Hashira. There's already a flame Hashira present in the core. The position is filled. That's not. Stop, Ishida interrupted, holding up a hand. Both of them immediately fell silent. About your training, as I said before, and as I also understood during my last fight, there are many things I still need to learn myself. And there are many things I can't teach you both. He paused, his expression thoughtful. My whole fighting style is based on instinct. There's no structured training regimen I can give you other than making you fight stronger opponents. So I've decided something for both of you. But, Sakura opened her mouth to speak, but Ishida raised his hand again. But it doesn't mean you won't train. I will find someone who can properly train you both. You did really well the other day, but you'll still need proper training to reach the point where you can fight in Upper Moon. With that, he started walking toward the entrance. Sakura and Kazuki exchanged glances before following after him. Wait, who? Kazuki asked, jogging to catch up. Who's going to train us? Yeah, who did you have in mind? Sakura added, her curiosity evident. You'll find out, Ishida replied simply. You'll find out when I've figured it out myself, he thought, already running through possibilities in his mind. At Yubayashiki Mansion. You wanted to talk to me, master. Ishida knelt on one knee in front of the house, as the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, Master Kaguya Yubayashiki, stood at the porch. A warm and graceful smile rested on his face, though his disease had progressed noticeably since Ishida had last seen him, the curse's mark spreading further across his features. Yet his gentle smile remained unwavering, radiating the same serene warmth it always had. Ishida, my child, Kaguya's voice was soft, like wind through cherry blossoms. Thank you for coming. Please, lift your head. There's no need for such formality between us. Ishida raised his head but remained kneeling, his expression respectful. I heard about your encounter on the mountain, Kaguya continued, his tone carrying both concern and admiration. Facing Upper Moon too, and surviving. That is no small feat. I wanted to congratulate you personally for your courage and strength. Ishida's jaw tightened slightly, his eyes lowering. Master, I couldn't kill him. Despite everything, despite all my techniques and preparation, he escaped. I failed. Failed. Kaguya's voice held no judgment, only gentle curiosity. My dear child, you stood against one of Muzen's most powerful demons and protected your students. You fought through the night and lived to see the dawn. That is not failure, that is a victory earned through tremendous will. But if I were stronger. Ishida, Kaguya interrupted softly, yet the single word carried enough weight to still Ishida's protest. In all the years since Upper Moon 2 emerged, countless Hashira have faced him. None have survived an extended encounter as you did. That you stand before me now, whole and living, is an achievement that hasn't been seen in decades. You shouldn't diminish what you've accomplished. I understand, but... Ishida's hands clenched slightly against his thighs. I know my limitations now. I saw how far I still have to go. If I can't defeat him, how can I? Be kind to yourself, Ishida, as you are kind to others, Kaguya said, his voice carrying a warmth that seemed to permeate the very air. You carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, but you must remember, you are still young, still growing, still learning. The path to strength isn't measured only in the demons you slay, but in the wisdom you gain, the bonds you forge, and the lives you protect. He paused, letting his words settle like falling snow. A sword that tries to cut everything becomes brittle and breaks. But a sword that knows when to bend, when to wait, when to strike, that sword endures. You are still being forged, my child. Each battle tempers you, but you need not be complete all at once. Suddenly, Ishida felt it, a warmth surrounding him, emanating from the man standing before him. It wasn't physical heat, but something deeper, more profound. It filled the space around them like gentle sunlight breaking through storm clouds. In that moment, Ishida understood with perfect clarity why the Hashira who had served before him spoke of their master with such reverence and devotion. It wasn't power. It wasn't authority. It was this boundless kindness, this ability to see into the heart of another person and speak exactly what they needed to hear, precisely when they needed to hear it. Kaguya Yubayashiki didn't command respect through strength, he earned it through understanding, through compassion that seemed to flow as naturally as breathing. And speaking of growth, Kaguya continued, his smile brightening slightly, I've also learned of the achievements of young Kazuki and Sakura. defeating Lower Moon 6 and earning their rank promotions, such promising young souls. It fills my heart with joy to see the new generation rising, to see young people like you, like them, carrying forward the torch that others have held before you. He paused, his expression becoming even more tender. The future of the Corps doesn't rest solely on the shoulders of one person, Ishida. It rests on all of us, each person doing what they can, supporting one another, growing together. You are not alone in this fight, nor should you be. Your strength is remarkable, but it's your ability to nurture and protect others that makes you truly exceptional. Ishida's chest felt tight. He wanted to respond, but the words caught in his throat. The Corps and its slayers are like children to me, Kaguya said softly, his voice carrying a paternal warmth that made something deep inside Ishida ache. I always want what's best for all of you. I know it's difficult for you to open up to others, Ishida. I know you carry pain that you've buried deep, losses that shaped you, fears that drive you, burdens you believe only you can shoulder. The master's unseeing eyes seemed to look directly into Ishida's soul. But remember this, my child, a wound that's never exposed to light cannot heal. The people around you, your fellow Hashira, your students, your comrades, they don't see your struggles as weakness. They see your humanity. And that humanity, that willingness to care despite the cost, is what makes you strong. He smiled again, and somehow it felt like an embrace. Don't burden yourself with regrets over battles not yet won. Don't punish yourself for not being invincible. The fact that you try, that you stand and fight despite knowing the cost, that is what makes you a true demon slayer. That is what makes you worthy of the title you carry. Ishida felt something warm building behind his eyes. His hands, still clenched against his thighs, slowly relaxed. When was the last time someone spoke to me like this? He thought. Not as a weapon, not as a tool, but as a person who matters beyond what I can do for others. The walls he'd built around himself, walls he hadn't even fully realized were there, felt like they were cracking, just slightly. Not breaking, but allowing the faintest bit of light to filter through. Thank you, Master, Ishida said, his voice quieter than before, but carrying genuine emotion. I needed to hear that. Kaguya's smile somehow grew even warmer. We all need reminders, Ishida. Even the strongest among us. Especially the strongest among us, perhaps. The morning breeze rustled through the wisteria trees surrounding the mansion, carrying with it the sweet scent of blossoms. In this moment, despite the looming threats, despite the battles yet to come, Ishida felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. Peace. Not permanent, not complete, but present nonetheless. Now then, Kaguya said, his tone shifting slightly to something more practical while maintaining its gentle quality, I imagine you have much to consider regarding your students' training. Trust your instincts, Ishida. You'll find the right path for them, just as you're finding your own path forward. Ishida nodded, standing and bowing deeply. I will, Master. Thank you. As he turned to leave, Kaguya's voice called out once more. Ishida. He paused, looking back. Remember, you don't have to carry everything alone. That's what family is for. Ishida's eyes widened slightly at the word family, and for a moment, something vulnerable flickered across his face before he composed himself. I'll remember, he said quietly. And as he walked away from the Yubayashiki mansion, the warmth of those words lingered with him, a gentle reminder that even in darkness, there was still light to be found. 113, Chapter 104, Flame Hashira for Training. After talking to Master Kaguya Yubayashiki, Ishida walked out of the Yubayashiki residence and decided to head back to his mansion for the time being. But as he was walking, he realized he wanted to meet with Jiyu Tomioka, the water Hashira, for an important question, something he thought would be best to ask Jiyu only, as he was the only person among the Hashira he knew and had talked to enough times to ask for suggestions. As he continued walking toward his mansion, surprisingly, Jiyu was walking toward him from the opposite direction. Judging by the route he was coming from, it seemed like he'd been near Ishida's place. Did he visit my place? Well, before he could think more about it, Jiyu had already noticed him. With a slight knowing nod, he walked forward as Ishida moved slightly ahead to meet him. So, you're awake, and it seems you're doing well now, Jiyu said, observing his condition with his usual stoic expression. Yes, Ishida simply nodded. I was actually going to your place to meet you. I see. Did you need anything? Ishida nodded slightly. Well, I needed a simple favor from you. A favor? What kind? Can you train Kazuki and Sakura on my behalf? I mean, they have great potential, but I don't really have a clear path or instructions in mind to train them properly. Training a slayer is the responsibility of a Hashira. As a Hashira yourself, you should be training them, or taking help from any other Hashira if needed. Any other Hashira? Well yeah, I thought about that too, and that's why I was asking you, another Hashira. Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not a Hashira, Jiyu said, slightly turning his gaze away from Ishida and looking in the opposite direction with his usual stoic expression. You'll have to find someone else for it. Ishida was slightly taken aback by his response. Until this point, he'd known Jiyu as a Hashira, one of the pillars of the Demon Slayer Corps. But now he was saying he wasn't a Hashira. What could this mean? It's probably something personal. It's better not to dwell into someone else's personal matters, Ishida thought to himself, though he mentally noted the response just in case. Then who would you suggest? Without you, I don't know anyone from the Hashira well, not quite, anyway. Ishida asked for a suggestion with the simple and direct tone he always spoke in, while still carrying respect. Jiyu was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. The Flame Hashira, Kyojuro Rengoku, would be a good choice for both of their training, especially for Kazuki, given his flame-breathing style. Rengoku is experienced, passionate about teaching, and has a structured approach to training that could benefit them both. Ishida nodded, considering the suggestion. Rengoku. I've heard the name but haven't met him yet. He's enthusiastic, Jiyu said in his characteristic monotone, though there might have been the faintest hint of something in his voice. Fondness, perhaps. Sometimes overwhelmingly so. But he's an excellent teacher and takes his duties seriously. He'd be well suited for what you're looking for. I see. Thank you for the suggestion, Tomioka-san. Jiyu nodded slightly, then turned as if to leave. But he paused after a few steps, glancing back. He's currently out on a mission, so you'll have to wait until he returns to speak with him about it. Understood. I'll reach out to him when he's back. With that, Jiyu gave a final nod and walked away, his blue Haori catching the breeze as he disappeared down the path. Ishida stood there for a moment, processing the conversation. Kyojuro Rengoku, the Flame Hashira, that was the answer he'd been looking for. Now he just needed to wait for the right moment to approach him. Kazuki will probably be excited about training with the Flame Hashira, Ishida thought, a small hint of amusement crossing his mind. And Sakura will benefit from structured training as well. But, for her training under Tomioka-san would have been better due to their similar breathing form. Ishida thought, as he started walking towards his mansion. Now, need to think about my own training. There is no way I will be able to fight, let alone defeat Muzan with current strength. Ishida pondered his future of being a Hashira and getting stronger from his current 79-foot level he was in currently.
Every novel listed in the description comes with permanent access to the audiobook on Telegram. You pay once, and if the novel is still ongoing, you'll receive all future updates automatically. No extra cost. Choose your novel from the description, then DM me on Telegram, WhatsApp, or Discord. After payment via PayPal, Ko-Fi, or Patreon, you'll get instant access. Simple, secure, lifetime listening. Guys, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button. Your support means a lot.